Welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. We are going to dive into lesson 80. And before doing so, we will just do a quick recap of some of the preceding chapters. Lesson 40, I am blessed as a son of God. Lesson 41, God goes with me wherever I go. Lesson 42, God is my strength. Vision is his gift. Lesson 43, God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. Lesson 50, God is the light in which I see. Lesson 45, God is the mind with which I think. Lesson 46, God is the love in which I forgive. Lesson 47, God is the strength in which I trust. Lesson 48, there is nothing to fear. Lesson 49, God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Lesson 50, I am sustained by the love of God. Lesson 61, I am the light of the world. Lesson 62, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. Lesson 63, the light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. Lesson 64, let me not forget my function. Lesson 65, my only function is the one God gave me. Lesson 66, my happiness and my function are one. Lesson 67, love created me like itself. Lesson 68, love holds no grievances. Lesson 69, my grievances hide the light of the world in me. Lesson 70, my salvation comes from me. Lesson 71, only God's plan for salvation will work. Lesson 72, holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Lesson 73, I will, there be light. Lesson 74, there is no will but God's. Lesson 75, the light has come. Lesson 76, I am under no laws but God's. Lesson 77, I am entitled to miracles. Lesson 78, let miracles replace all grievances. Lesson 79, let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. Lesson 80, let me recognize my problems have been solved. And this is today's lesson. If you are willing to recognize your problems, you will recognize that you have no problems. Your one central problem has been answered, and you have no other. Therefore, you must be at peace. Salvation thus depends on recognizing this one problem and understanding that it has been solved. One problem, one solution. Salvation is accomplished. Freedom from conflict has been given you. Accept this fact, and you are ready to take your rightful place in God's plan for salvation. Your only problem has been solved. Repeat this over and over to yourself today with gratitude and conviction. You have recognized your only problem, opening the way for the Holy Spirit to give you God's answer. You have laid deception aside and seen the light of truth. You have accepted salvation for yourself by bringing the problem to the answer. And you can recognize the answer because the problem has been identified. You are entitled to peace today. A problem that has been resolved cannot trouble you. Only be certain you do not forget that all problems are the same. Their many forms will not deceive you while you remember this. One problem, one solution. Accept the peace this simple statement brings. In our longer practice periods today, we will claim the peace that must be ours when the problem and the answer have been brought together. The problem must be gone because God's answer cannot fail. Having recognized one, you have recognized the other. The solution is inherent in the problem. You are answered and have accepted the answer. You are saved. Now let the peace that your acceptance brings be given you. Close your eyes and receive your reward. Recognize that your problems have been solved. Recognize that you are out of conflict, free and at peace. And above all else, remember that you have one problem, and that one problem has one solution. It is in this that the simplicity of salvation lies. It is because of this that it is guaranteed to work. Assure yourself often today that your problems have been solved. Repeat the idea with deep conviction as frequently as possible. And be particularly sure to apply the idea for today to any specific problem that may arise. Say quickly, let me recognize this problem has been solved. Let us be determined not to collect grievances today. Let us be determined to be free of problems that do not exist. This means the means is simple honesty. Do not deceive yourself about what the problem is, and you must recognize it has been solved. I really, really deeply appreciate the logical approach that she takes. When I was in 7th grade, we did, logic was a course in school. And so much of it was if this, then that, and just building arguments. And then we started doing debate team and, 12 years old. And ever since then, I've loved logic, and I've loved how the logical reasoning, it makes so much sense. And I just really appreciate her approach. Like, as each lesson is building on the other, there really is a logical thread throughout all of it. It's like, okay, if there's one problem, that means that there's one solution. And she just goes through each thing so well, breaking it down and making it understandable. So, for example, yesterday and in the preceding days, we've been talking about we have to first identify the problem in order to then recognize what the answer is. Because so often we can actually be fixated on trying to find a solution without really clearly identifying the problem. Y'all, what we deem as the problem here in this present moment, so often that's actually not the root of what it is that we're feeling. And this is not what she was saying. So I'm expounding on this to make it more practical for application, because sometimes, we read this and it's like, okay, great, your only problem has been solved. Okay, what does this look like in action? So where she's talking about the one problem, which has been effectively grievances and lack of forgiveness and holding on to the past and how the past corrodes and colors our ability to be here in the present. That problem of grievances, and then the solution that comes through forgiveness and through love, that is so much of what boils down to kind of the root when you actually take all your problems in the world and then you boil it down, it's grievances in so many ways. It's holding on tightly. And this is another aspect of the book, Letting Go, that I really, really love. It's so practical in terms of how do I apply what we're learning here in A Course in Miracles. So much of letting go is actually the true application of living in a state of perpetually releasing and letting go over and over and over again. And it's letting go of even good things. I had a surprise that I was planning and it got ruined. And so I'm like, oh, well, am I more attached to the outcome of that surprise happening, or am I more actually attached to just wanting to love the person that I was planning the surprise for? And it really, whenever our plans get foiled or whenever a problem arises, it shows us, it like pulls back the veil to reveal what's really going on inside of us. And then we get to look in the mirror and say, oh, I didn't know that was in there. And so as we're looking at all these problems that we're facing right here, right now in the present, one, so often what we're experiencing, let's say a moment of conflict with someone, so often that actually has roots to the past. So the problem that we're addressing right here, right now in the present isn't actually the problem. It's tied to the past. And usually what she's calling out is the fact that at the root of that, like, so you trace it down to the Genesis moment. So here in this present moment, that's actually not even the real problem. When I trace it down, that something happened to me 20 years ago that I haven't healed from. And then when I trace that root, it's like, I'm holding on to grievances. I'm holding on to bitterness. I'm holding on to anger. I'm holding on to something that's fundamentally preventing me from connection, from relationship, from love, that would otherwise allow for us to coexist together in whether it's peace. She talked about peace today as being a goal and something that's attainable, that's ours, that we can have access to. And so I'm so grateful for the logical flow that she's gone through. And y'all, it's so amazing that we have the answer to our problems. She says, it is in this that the simplicity of salvation lies. It's really, in one sense, it's so easy that I think that we don't want to accept it because we want to go be the hero of our lives and other people's lives and have to jump through all the hoops and conquer all the demons and slay the dragons and then set everybody free, rather than just doing it through the simple act of forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't sexy and it's not loud. I was writing about that this morning, just kind of revisiting some chapters in my book and just reminding myself that love is actually quite quiet. There's this biblical concept of the presence of God, the spirit and voice of God came through the whisper in the wind. It wasn't in the fire. It wasn't in the storm. It was in the whisper. And so often that's where we meet love and experience love, is in the quiet. And so are we willing to kind of throw off this grandiose pursuit of being the hero and be quiet and listen and allow love to flow in and then through us? Because then, and I was actually talking to my darling about this morning, when we are powered by love, we actually get to execute on justice and fulfill on whatever the glorious mission is that we've been given, but it's just not rooted in fear anymore. It's rooted in love. And love is actually marked by peace and marked by joy and marked by the fruit of all that is good, even though the action might be something that's very justice oriented, it's powered and propelled by something that's more everlasting than fear. So with that, I'm just jumping here in the chat. Good morning. Nicole, I'm so glad to see you back. Hi. Risha, hello. Bobby, I'm glad to see you. Andra, hello. Oh, I'm glad to see you. Fishing, hello. EQ, you too, my friend. Hope you have a wonderful life. I love it. Darren, good morning. Harish, hi. Half Shop, hi. Oh, Comic Book Fusion, I'm so glad you're here. GH, no, we're live. Thanks for hanging out with us. Jason, good morning. Sergio, hello, good morning. Andra, GH, I did not. That's so weird. EQ, that's so good. I'd like to, Mutt, I'd like to be part of your community. Please come hang out with us. I'm having a conversation, I think today, Brian, if you're there. I think I'm chatting with somebody today actually about formalizing the community. So I would love, love, love to have you. All right, GH, I'm just going to put you on timeout because you're saying things that I don't even know. Patrick, it's showtime. Good morning. All right, just scrolling down. Abdul, good morning. Jeffrey, hi. Some guy. Y'all, it's cool to be able to just almost so much of the truth to really cement it in our hearts and in our minds. We have, this morning I was listening to some of my OG music. I was messaging my siblings and we were going back to the 2000s music that we were listening to as kids. And it was so much fun. And it was so much of it was alternative rock. It was so fun to go back and listen to it. And it's interesting because so much of what we listen to, so much of what we consume really feeds us and changes the way that we think and it adjusts the way that we view the world. And so it's fascinating when we choose a different input, when we choose a different source, our minds change. And thus you shall know a tree by its fruit. Thus the fruit of our lives change. So change the source, change the input, change the fruit of our lives. So if we want to change real aspects of who we are, looking at the source, changing our inputs so that we can then have different outputs. And so to that point, as we're reading through A Course in Miracles every single morning and diving into this, normally I go live at 9 a.m. Eastern, but I had a late night last night. I had a late night the night before I was finishing my book, and I feel like I've been needing to catch up on sleep to maintain health. But so often we're going live at 9 a.m. Eastern, and just the conversations have been so good. And it's all about, what are we meditating on? What are we feeding our minds? What are we feeding our bodies? And it's nourishing, that what we are actually consuming in terms of the mental stimulus, physical food, all of that is nourishing parts of us, or it's either nourishing, adding to, supplementing, or it's taking away. It's really detracting from literally our life source. And so Hevmet says, I also think it deals a lot with maturity. I really, with this whole concept of maturity, I think you're talking about something else, but I'm glad you brought that up because it's interesting. As I was talking with my siblings this morning on the music that we used to listen to, there's an aspect of growing up where, the concept of leaving childish things behind us, I think it's so much both. allowing for the play and that which is life-giving to continue on into adulthood, yet allowing for the childish narratives to evolve and to grow, and for those to mature with us with new experiences. Y'all, we talk about intellectual intelligence, emotional intelligence. Artificial intelligence is so powerful because of the data that it has access to. We have data. We have data from all of our experiences, but sometimes, actually a lot of the time, our intelligence emotionally is only cultivated so far as we've gone through and processed the past experiences that we've had. If we want to continue to evolve and strengthen our emotional intelligence, we actually need to strengthen and better understand the data that we have access to, which is our past. But if we're suppressing, if we're avoiding, if we're ignoring things that have been painful to us, there's a lot of data in every single, I think of it as like bricks. So every unprocessed experience, unprocessed emotion contains data. And if we're not willing to process the experience, we're not willing to process the data that then informs our intelligences. So then when I effectively go into an experience, I'm operating off of data from 20 years ago, 30 years ago for some of us, for others, 50 years ago. And so how much is our data actually being updated in a regular way to allow for the ongoing processing and maintenance of, computer programmers call it the information processing system. This is where you've got the input, you've got the processing, and then you've got the output. If so much of our processing isn't taking in the new inputs that we're receiving and we're only processing the old data, we've got all this new input that's effectively going to waste. And so it's so important that we're taking the time for all of the data that's in there. It needs to go through the processing system in order to then inform our outputs. So many people have changed. If we had bad experiences with, let's say, our dad when we were young, maybe he's actually radically changed, but if we haven't processed those bad experiences, we're still stuck in the past. And we actually cannot engage with our dad as he is today. We only engage with him as he was when we were 7 or 8 years old. So our data from the past and it's like this massive gap can exist. The 20 years of data that hasn't gone into the processing system and thus informed us about what has changed and evolved over the past decades. So I just love that, Hevmet, that you said that, because I think that there is a lot when it comes to maturity. It's maturing data and allowing this new data to be an informant, be an informant in our lives. I love that, Patrick. It's so good. I did not put away my childish ways. I love that. Rob, good morning. A can of Miller Lite, Patrick says. As you should on the weekend, right? Well, I guess any day, but I love that. In my line of work, you had to be a jerk, whereas you wouldn't have made it. What's your line of work, Patrick? I'm curious. Rob, your channel is description is enticing. I'm so glad that you're here. Is this your first? I don't think I've seen your name before, Rob. So I'm glad that you're here. Classic. No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that this is a show where we talk about cultivating every part of us, and we are the mind, we are the soul, and we are spirit. So we do talk about things which are eternal. And especially in the morning show, we talk about how do we allow for the capital T truths, the actual truth to inform our, not just what we consider to be truth. A lot of people are saying my truth. Really, it's your experience, what you believe, but that doesn't mean it's a capital T truth, because we see this to, be evidenced when you've got two people in a conflict. They both have their truth. No, they just have their experiences. What's actually more true is the objective reality, and who can even say what objective reality is, because there's so much context. There's so much going in to allow for really, I was thinking about this 2 days ago. Can we ever be objective? I don't think so. We're all biased. Tony, thanks for joining. Patrick, it's a long way to the top. If you want to rock and roll, remember me for that. Hevmet, you are not your mistakes. No. And isn't that so important that we don't make other people their mistakes too? That's part of, I'm so glad you said that. So much of what she's been talking about over the last couple of weeks is when we hold on to grievances, we are fundamentally preventing others to experience growth and even be, we're holding people to what they do rather than who they are, who is their true identity. And a lot of times, y'all, we nor many people around us are actually living in the fullness of our identity. So my darling actually said this to me a year ago, and I just thought it was the most gracious thing. I said something, I forget what I said. And he just looked at me and he said, that doesn't sound like you. And it was just the most gracious, kind way to remind me of who I am, who God says I am, who I can choose to be, if I so choose. And I just love that. That doesn't sound like you. It's like, hey, you're acting one way, but I know you to be somebody else. I know you to be better, more loving, more empathetic, whatever it is that you aspire to be, whoever, and also whatever it is that God says that you are. God says that you're worthy, you're chosen, you belong, you're wanted, you're beautifully and wonderfully made. All of that are those capital T truths. So anything out of alignment with that is, okay, I'm actually not walking in the fullness of my own propensity and prowess to make an impact in the world. Patrick says military and then merchant sailor. Well, thank you for your service. I hear what you're saying about like, you kind of need, you need to be rough around the edges to make it. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to have you jump on this morning. We are going to, well, I guess midday. We are going to be live again. I have to check my schedule for what time tonight, but we'll go ahead and go live later, and I'll schedule it once I have clarity on the timing. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Happy Saturday. Let's make the most of this March 21st. So Patrick says, truth is like beauty in the eye of the beholder. That is a beautiful phrase. Truth is like beauty in the eye of the beholder. And it's like what we were talking about, truth in terms of the experience. And I do actually believe that there are some capital T truths, like what is even more true than my experience. All right, y'all. Have a wonderful day. Tony, Patrick, Burka, thank you guys for joining. Be Real. Have met Abdul, Dominic. Hello, Rob. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Nicole, Bobby, good to see you guys. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you later, and I'll go